Hello, everyone. Today I'm sharing with you, you think you're making requests. You're actually making wishful thinkings. 3 common misconceptions in outsourcing design communication. This is the most easily overlooked, yet most fatal problem in almost every outsourcing collaboration. Because the reality is often, the requirements have been stated, references have been provided, and the design team has worked very hard, but the result is still. The more you revise, the further off topic it becomes, the more tiring it gets, and the less satisfied you are. You might think it's a lack of design comprehension, but the truth is, many requirements were never actually requirements from the start, but rather wishes. First, the conclusion. 80% of outsourcing failures aren't due to design problems, but rather the way of expressing requirements. Truly effective requirements have one very clear characteristic. They are measurable, executable, and verifiable, while wishful thinking requirements are the opposite: vague, abstract, unverifiable. The following 3 misconceptions are almost universally encountered in every outsourcing collaboration. 2. Misconception 1. Using feelings to replace judgment standards. This is the most common and also the one that requires the most rework. Common wish-like expressions: more sophisticated, more textured, more youthful, more pleasing to the eye, don't be too tacky. These aren't real requirements, because if you ask, what level is considered sophisticated? Almost no one can answer. Why do feelings inevitably backfire? Because design can only constantly guess your standards, constantly test your boundaries. Ultimately, it will become, let's try a different feeling. The correct approach: translate feelings into judgmentable conditions. For example, more sophisticated, less information, more white space, only one main selling point, more youthful. Stronger color contrast, faster pace, emotional words appear earlier. When feelings become conditions, the design has direction, and you can then verify its effectiveness. 3. Misconception 2. Wanting everything at once. This is the second biggest source of rework. Common scenarios: want all the selling points. All the functions are important. Can't this one version reflect everything? It sounds reasonable, but the reality is always information overload, loss of focus, a cluttered and unfashionable page. Why does wanting everything always lead to poor results? Because the essence of design is trade-offs. When you don't help the design team make trade-offs, the design team can only release everything, apply equal effort to everything. No one dares to delete anything. The correct approach: first, clearly define what this version won't do. You must clearly state in the requirements what this version only solves, which content will not be included this time. Other selling points will be discussed later. For example, this version's main image only addresses whether it's convenient. Other functions will not be included. Once not doing is confirmed, the rework rate will directly decrease. 4th, misconception 3. Treating outcome expectations as process requirements. This is the most insidious but most time-consuming type. Common wishful demands: wanting a version that will go viral. This image needs to drive conversions, hoping this version will perform well. These are not requirements, but outcome expectations. Why can't outcome expectations be requirements? Because you're saying, what result do I want? But you're not saying, what actions do you want the design to perform? Design cannot directly draw out conversion rates. The correct approach: break down the result into actions that can be executed. For example, this version aims to boost conversions. Only one key decision point at first glance to reduce user hesitation, hoping for explosive growth. This version focuses on one emotional element for A/B testing. Design can only be responsible for the actions, not for making wishes about the results. V. A comparison table of wishful requests versus professional requests. You can quickly compare them yourself. Wishful expression, professional request. Expression, more advanced. Less information, clearer priorities. Both are important. This version only retains one key point: comfortable to read, fewer words, slower pace, more white space, boost conversion rate, reduce hesitation, provide guidance for choice, achieve satisfaction. Meeting these 3 points guarantees approval. Whether it's feasible is immediately apparent. Vex. 3 questions for self-checking requests. Before outsourcing. Before sending your request to the designer, you can ask yourself these 3 questions. Can the designer follow every word I say? 2. Does this version clearly solve only one problem? 3. If the designer asks, what constitutes completion, can I answer? If you can't answer even one of these, this request is most likely still just a wishful request. A word of truth for those who often feel, designers never understand me. It's not that designers don't understand you, it's that what you're saying isn't an executable instruction. When you're willing to, clearly express your feelings. Focus on the key points, break down the results into actions, you'll find that outsourced design suddenly becomes much easier to communicate with. In short, the biggest pitfall in outsourced design communication isn't a lack of requirements, but rather mistaking wishes for requirements. Remember this: good requirements aren't what do you want, but rather what the designer should do and how much constitutes completion. When requirements stop making wishes, designers won't guess. When designers stop guessing, revisions will naturally decrease. This is the beginning of truly smooth outsourced communication.